Hello, welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports and another edition of what is in our stand today. Now that's a hashtag that you can follow and see what other videos I have posted. My name is George. I will be your host for the next few minutes. And if you please, subscribe. And there's also a little bell there that if you hit that, you will be notified when I've posted a new video. All right, what we have today in our stand is something that I've been doing a lot of lately, and that is a complete drivetrain makeover. And so I've been using absolute black chain rings to reduce the size of the chain rings. Most of the time they have been a compact crank setup, so a 50 and a 34, 50 the largest chain ring on the outside and a 34 on the inside. And we've been using absolute black gravel style chain rings of a 4630, but we've been putting them on a road bike. And then we've also enlarged the cassette in the back. So without further ado, let's take a look at the bike. Then we will look at what we're installing. And lastly, throughout, I'll be giving some tips and some pointers along the way. Okay, so here's what we have. We have a Specialized in our stand today. And you know, it's important to note that I get a lot of Specialized and Treks here in the store. Obviously, they make a large percentage of the bikes on the road, but people trust me to bring in their Specialized and Trek bikes, and I don't sell these brands, so it's really nice to see the trust that my customers have in bringing their bikes to me. So this is a small cassette. This is about an 1125, and we're going to enlarge that to an 1134. We're going to need a longer cage derailleur because this is a really short cage derailleur. And the chain was worn, so that's a good thing because once we switch out to a long cage derailleur, the chain typically is not long enough. This is a 5034 setup. You can see that right there. And this is going to be reduced to a 4630. We'll have to adjust the front derailleur. As I mentioned, we'll have to replace the rear derailleur, so that'll get adjusted as well. So while we're at it, we might as well give the bike a tune-up. And then additionally, we're going to replace the bar tape. There's quite a bit of creative patchwork here just to get through until he could get to the bike shop. So we're also going to do a bike fit for this gentleman once it's all put together. One of the things that I noticed was how far forward his saddle was, and I asked him if he knew that his saddle was that far forward. He didn't know. He didn't know why it was there. So we're just going to take a quick look at him. So let's walk over to the bench, and what we have here is a layout of the tools that it's not all inclusive, but most of the things, just so I have them handy. And my bike stand is within arm's reach of my bench, so I always want to be able to just reach what I need to get to instead of having to reach up to my pegboard. All right, we're going to need to remove the cassette. So here's the chain whip, the crescent wrench, and the lock ring removal tool. We will then have to torque that cassette back on, and that's 40 Newton meters. Sorry, I'm kind of a geek. I remember certain things that I do all the time. So then we'll have to remove the crankset and remove the chain rings, and so you'll need these torques. And once we reinstall the crankset, we'll need to torque it to between 12 and 14 Newton meters. Again, I'm a geek. I remember things. These two torques, T-O-R-Q, these two wrenches are what we will need to install the bolts as well. They come in two different sizes. This is the tool that we need to remove the preload for the crankset. We will remove his rear derailleur, so that's what the 5 is for, and reinstall the rear derailleur. And then to anchor the cable, we will need the 4mm The 5 will also be used to move the front derailleur from its high position now down, because we're going from a 50 tooth chainring to a 46. The back side of the derailleur, where the limit screws are, I like to use a square tip Allen wrench, just because it's a 2mm and the round ball can start the stripping process, and I just would rather use a square tip Allen wrench. We'll need the front derailleur to adjust the cage, so that's what that is for. The Phillips screwdriver will break the chain and then reinstall the chain. So when we reinstall the chain, we're using one of the newer snap link chains, and so we'll get to that here in a minute. Then we will also install the chain rings, and they come with their own bolts, and they are called out for 4630 because that's what we're using. A 30 inner chain ring, a 46 outer chain ring. And for those that are coming to this channel often, I apologize if some of the things are redundant, but there are some people that just all of a sudden find this channel. But so 46 and a 30 need to be used together, and a 48 and a 32 need to be used together, because you should not have more than 16 teeth difference between your outer chainring and your inner chainring. And might be hard to see, but this is a ovalized chainring. So there you go. Now we'll also replacing the bar tape, as I mentioned before, and grease. We always just have grease for things. This is the long cage rear derailleur that we're going to install. It's part of the 8000 series, so he's getting a little bit of an upgrade. He's on a 6800 group set. And these are the set screws I was talking about. So they're 2mm, and I just would rather use a square tip Allen wrench. Here's the 1134 cassette. And one thing I wanted to mention and point out is that this spacer comes with it. So on your 11-speed wheels, this is an 11-speed cassette. And the way this cassette is designed, it's concave so that it can clear the spokes. But you need to push it out almost like a shim. You need to push it out a little bit so that there's no interference with the spokes. Here's the Ultegra chain that we're going to install with its quick link. Here's the tool for that. And then we'll probably have to replace the rear derailleur cable, just because it's hard to fish it back through these fittings when it's already been clamped down to the previous derailleur. We're going to lube the chain with a wax-based lube, and this is my preferred lube at the moment. It tests really, really well. And instead of having to put paraffin wax in a crock pot and go through the process of dunking your chain and all that stuff, this is the best performing lube, and it's just straight out of a bottle, so a lot less effort. Here's a new rear derailleur cable, I should say housing, and we'll use that as well. He currently has white housing on his bike, I guess because it's a white bike, but we're going to start replacing things with black. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. Apologize for the length of the video, but I do like to kind of walk through everything that I'm doing to the bike. So please subscribe to the channel, and if you would like, get those notifications, click on that bell, and we look forward to seeing you on the road.